Welcome to the Mind Man Podcast, where we don't focus on changing the world. Rather, the focus is on changing the people of the world, because it is the people that create what we call our world. And without changing the minds of the people, there is no hope in changing our world. We are in the midst of a conscious revolution, and it is my intention to raise the collective consciousness. And I'm your host, Adrian Moreno. And I thank you in joining me on creating a new world, one mind at a time. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Mind Man Podcast. Today, I am extremely excited to have the Breakup to Wake Up coach with me, Jocelyn Bellows. Jocelyn, hello. How are you doing this morning?
Adrian, good morning. And I have to say, right off the bat, like your energy, you're just like oozing this joy and energy, and I'm just gonna suck on it, if that's all right. It's like what else?
Absolutely. What's mine is yours, and I'm so happy I have this energy on a Monday morning. That's good.
Right? Well, here's the thing. So I'm gonna kick it right off. So this morning I was on, I think it was Instagram or Facebook, one of the two. And someone posted about the case of the Mondays, and if you have the case of the Mondays, maybe you need to reconsider what you're doing for your world, because you could either be like, here's Monday, or you're living your passion and you're like, wow, it's Monday, I get to go at it full force. So I feel the latter for you and for me.
Yeah, no, that's right, because I realized, when I used to have the bad case of the Mondays, I definitely experienced those a big chunk of my life, and thankfully I don't anymore. But yeah, it's because when you wake up and you realize, when you're not living in purpose, I guess, when you're not living in alignment, it's kind of hard to be excited.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to be, especially for me when I was just folding dry cleaning clothes and stuff like that. Like, that was very difficult. You know what? That can be a wonderful way to start off this conversation, because I know how you're very big on living life on your own terms. So first and foremost, I would like to share with us, what is it that you do? And then I want to know what led you to the role that you are doing, the role that you're playing right now.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just call it out, because I will in just a moment, because we just talked before getting on, before hitting record. Trying to turn all of our notifications off. I heard your ding.
I know. It came off, and I was just like, oh my God, I don't know how to. It's on the computer. Who cares? We're just gonna go.
This is real life, people. We're still real life.
Yes, real life. No stress.
To avoid your question, but to answer your question. So I do a number of things, but what we're really talking about today is my coaching, which is the Breakup to Wake Up coaching. So I've been a coach for almost a year and a half now. And when I talk about what Breakup to Wake Up is, it's really breaking up with the stories and the garbage that no longer suits you, that never actually served you. Like the idea of you being unworthy of receiving love, or unworthy of having the money that you desire, unworthy of having the friends that you desire, or I'm unable to love another, or I'm a victim of my circumstances, and those are all things that were me personally, and that we'll talk about why I do what I do. But breaking up with all those things that limit you, that keep you small, and really getting to the roots of why you've decided that those are your stories, and that why you have created that as your own reality, to remove those and plant new seeds that are nourishing and can lead you and allow you to live this life of abundance, of joy, of fulfillment, of happiness. And so the Breakup to Wake Up component, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, is that around relationship? Well, yes, it is. It's actually your relationship with yourself. It's actually not about the relationship external to you, but it's who you are and how you relate to your own being. And the reason I do this is it's my own journey. A couple of years ago, I moved to Colorado. I'm a New Jersey native, and these days I call Colorado home, although I believe Colorado's always been my home. It was a matter of time. And moving out here, shortly after moving out here, I realized that I was in a very unhealthy relationship, external relationship, romantic relationship. And at the time when we moved out here, I was married and had a young child. And I had walked away from a very prolific career to make this move. And it was a very open decision. This wasn't like a overnight thing. We had made a very conscientious decision to make this move. And in the first couple of months that we were out here, we still were operating a family-owned business back east. And my former husband was traveling back east pretty regularly to run that business. And I'd realized that every time he left, I could just breathe.
Wow.
And every time he returned, I felt like I was walking on eggshells. Now, that was probably one of the final indicators. However, certainly there were indications throughout our relationship that were not aligning for my best self. And I really realized that I needed to walk away from that. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Like I had requested many times to seek external help, to seek some guidance around how can we communicate better? Can we make this work? Can we find ways to improve ourselves? And it just got to a point that that was not something there was not a willingness to do that from his side. And that was his choice. And I sought my own assistance. And so I walked away. And that was not an easy decision to make. It was a very tough decision. However, the day that I decided that I knew I had to do that, my world shifted because I finally chose me, because I wasn't loving me for so long. And in doing that, from that point on, I just continued to make choices that best suited what was best for me and how I was going to treat myself and how I was going to love myself. And in that journey, I worked with my first life coach within a couple of weeks of filing for my separation.
Okay.
And in that time, I really discovered, working with that coach, how I had lived such an external life, that I was so busy trying to please him, trying to be something for everybody else, and I wasn't taking care of me. I just wasn't. And I shifted that focus to me, and I went into cocoon mode for nearly a year, where I really had very little communication with friends from my past, my family, and I really spent a lot of time just working on, like, how do I love myself? And one of the things I really did was embracement vulnerability through that process. And this was not something that my coach had requested of me. This was something I had chosen to do. And I was really open on Facebook about everything I was going through, like the pain, the pain, the heartache, the stuff that just people don't generally share on Facebook, because we know Facebook is like this reel of like happy times. And there might be people that live like that all the time. I think that's a bunch of BS. I think we go through our highs and lows. All of us do. And what I found is every time I shared, it was a healing process for me to just be like, I'm removing my armor. I'm just going to be who I am. And I'm not really concerned about what people are writing, until people started really reaching out and saying, hey, what are you doing? Because I want. I'm seeing your shift from, like, you did this thing that was really hard, and you are creating and crafting a new life, and you're so positive, and there's so much happiness and there's so much joy. And when people started saying they're friends to me, it kind of started clicking, like, maybe this is the journey that I'm meant to be on, is my message to share with others that it's entirely possible for you to shift your life. So that's why I do it, because I know what it's like to be on both sides of it. And I'm going to be really very honest with you. Like, I just did my own disservice. I did a lot of great work, and then I entered into a romantic relationship for about a year. In the first half of it, I did really great. I stayed in my skin and I really owned my power. And then my patterns returned and I undid a lot of the work that I had done. Only now I have the tools to know how to rebuild and continue to learn, because it was lessons, right? There's always lessons.
Yeah, definitely. And that's big how you just because how you like got up and you left not just like your husband and that, but the fact that it was looking like a promise in life, kind of like career wise, external wise.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people, they find themselves in that everybody, I mean, I don't know if everybody, but I know that there's a lot of people who experience that phase when they're in a moment of life where they just feel like, I need to do something for myself. Like, even though it literally goes against the grain, like, even though anybody who's watching me would be like, that makes zero sense as to why you're doing that. Mm-hmm. And because I know that takes a lot of courage to do that. To somebody who is stuck and they're in a phase like that of life right now, and they're listening to this, what would you tell somebody? Like, how do you truly, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you choose yourself first in a way that just makes sense to you without, in other words, how do you get it? How do you make the decision and do that?
Yeah. There's so many ways. I think one of the places I like to start with a lot of people is write out your vision of what your most prolific life could look like. Does it mean that you are you own 5 homes and own luxury vehicles? Is that what is exciting for you? Is it you want to own your own business, and maybe maybe you want to own a food truck, and that because you love to nourish other people and feed other people and you love to cook? Is that your ideal vision of what your life is going to be? Whatever that is, and write the whole thing, not just your career, but like everything. What are the kind of friends that you want to be around? Who are the people that inspire you? What does your life look like? All of it. What does your family life look like? Do you want a family? Not everyone wants a family. But what does the whole picture look like? Look at it from a big screen and write it as if you already have it. So write it from the point of, I am so happy and grateful now that I have, and write the whole thing out. Let's start there. I'm also particularly a visual person too.
Yeah, me too.
So writing is wonderful because it engages your creative mind, and because you're actually writing it and reading it, it just reinforces that idea. Additionally, vision boards are great, and old school vision boards is like you had a stack of magazines and you cut out pictures. I do mine digitally, so there are things that I want to see in my world, and I do it every year. So you can select, like, go Google image dropping and drop images on a page.
Oh, okay.
And that's another way to also reinforce it. And I'm going to just take a quick side note. The first time I did a vision board was in December of 17, which was the month that I filed for divorce. And I had put someone's name on my vision board, the last name of someone from my past who I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. And in February of the following year, so it's like a month and a half later, I'm on the phone with this person. I hadn't spoken to this person since 2001. And here we were in 2018. Okay, so 17 years. I had a conversation. It was I had somehow crafted a reason in my world that we were going to reconnect. I didn't realize I was doing it. I just had put this pin in there. So those are two things that you now have something that you're aiming towards, right? You have a goal. Now, I'm going to actually say signposts. It's not a final destination, right?
Yeah,
it
exactly.
It's all about the journey. Your life is the final destination is death.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I don't want to reach the destination just yet.
So it really is all about the journey, enjoying the journey. So enjoying, like, the process of the dream about what you want, releasing it, because you've now put it out there, right? You've put your intentions out there of what it is. Now you're going to start taking inspired actions to get towards that. So even though you might have drawn out this big, massive what your life is going to be, now we're going to start taking steps back up. From there, what do you feel is achievable today? What's today going to be? What is the decision you're going to make to take care of yourself today? Is it something as simple as, I'm just not interested in cooking for my family today. And let's say you're married and you're like, I'm taking the day off and I'm not going to do that. Put that request out there. Say, if you have a partner or a child who's able to cook, ask them to do it. Give them that assignment. If they say no, then you eat out. It's like they can be very little things. And see how that, like, if you ask your partner to do it, let's say you're the assumed person that makes the meals, but you ask your partner to engage in that and they like it. And maybe you make that every Thursday, your partner makes the meal. Great. Look what just happened. You just shifted in a positive way. It's like those little things.
Even small things like that count.
It doesn't have to be these monumental things. It can, in fact, a lot of times the small things make the biggest shift.
I was about to say that.
I mean, I also am a podcast host, so I'm going to try not to do this too much, but I'm curious because you are a personal trainer. So I'd love from your perspective, these small things and how they make big impacts for yourself and for your clients.
Yeah, totally. Like what I tell my clients along the way is like one of the first things I tell them, and I'm a very visual person too. And so like they go through these video modules and then there's one of me explaining, I'm like, this is probably what you think it's going to be like, a straight line of like, oh my God, from where I'm at to the best body of my life, to the best feeling of my life. And like that kind of life. But then I'm like, well, what it really looks like is, and I show them this, but I'm like, the reason why people give up, and this is not just in fitness, but in overall life, is because they think that when like somebody sees my transformation, it's like, oh wow, that must have been just a straight shot down to get to where he got. And really, I didn't lose 91 pounds. I lost 1 pound 91 times. And I realized that it's really not a question of how long is it going to take me to get there, but it's a question of how far can I really take this. And when you look at it that way, and I tell a lot of my clients especially my clients, it's like, I have some clients who have like 100+ pounds to lose. So they have a long journey ahead of them. And like to them, the thought of eating healthy, working out every day of my life, and that's way too overwhelming. I'm like, no, it's just for today. What are you going to do?
Yes.
Like just for today. Why not just today? You eat the right food. You eat what your body needs, not what it wants, but you eat what your body needs just for today, and exercise a little bit more than you did yesterday just for today, and then meditate just for take care of your mind. Do whatever, like I tell them. I always, like for me, I'm a coach with mind, body, and energy. It's like, that's health. And so I always like urge them to take care of themselves mentally as well. And I'm like, if you just do that every single day, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, wow, because nobody ever does. Like people, they look at small changes like they're not significant. I'm just like, small steps, that implies a journey. To have a journey, that implies that there is a destination, but there is no destination without the steps to get there. Yeah. So the steps to get there are always the biggest like parts that nobody takes into account when they're in the middle of it, because it seems so insignificant. But then when you look back, like my decision to just eat right every day and work out for an hour and a half to 2 hours every day, that's just one small change in my day-to-day life. But look at what it did in my life. Like it started a business. It started a movement. It started everything by just waking up and saying, man, just for today, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take care of myself.
Yeah.
And then that's what builds a monumental life, where it looks like you achieved something great. I'm like, no, I just achieved a bunch of little small stuff. And to you, it looks great. But to me, it was just a regular step, one step at a time.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that we've taken the time to really address that, because you know, even though I tend to talk about, like, my journey really began when I made a pretty big decision.
Yeah.
Most people might consider a very big decision, in the midst of a lot of things, right? Because, you know, when we talk about the big decisions of life, or the most like some of the most challenging times in life is moving to a new, moving, job change, divorce, and death. Those are like the big ones. And I did 3 of those all together in one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty huge.
You know, however, you said, you mentioned courage earlier, and people tend to say that to me a lot, that I show up with a lot of courage. I am an Aries. I'm a fire sign. I've always had a lot of boldness in my life. And so even though it may come across as courage and boldness, and yes, those are big decisions, I'm not going to say that I didn't falter, because these were big things. I just knew that on the other side, there was going to be so much, that my life was going to be so much greater. And I held on to other people for a while too. So when I began this journey, I had reconnected with a friend from high school who I noticed her name had changed from her married name back to her maiden name. And then saw a lot of joy in her Facebook feed. And I was like, I don't know what she's doing, but I want that. So I reached out to her and got curious, like, what are you up to? I didn't know her journey. I hadn't spoken with her also in over 20, actually this one over 20 years. And when I call her a friend, we're friendly. I don't think that we'd had many conversations through high school, but I remembered her.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her, and I was like, and she just opened up just a little bit, just shared a little bit of what was going on. And there was enough there for me to say, I feel comfortable telling her what's really happening in my world. And I let it all out. It was like, I'm about, I want to file for a divorce. I'm in this situation, and I'm looking to you for strength, because I don't feel like I have it right now. And she then shared everything, her journey. And it was so similar to mine, only she was a couple years further down the line. And she was my beacon. And so that's what I do for now, is like, I want to be a beacon for others, to let them know that it's entirely possible. And that even though you achieve this place where you sort of move through a lot of your own fears, realize this is an ongoing journey, that you're still going to trip on things, you're still going to have lessons. And now understand when people show up in your world, when jobs appear and disappear, when people appear and disappear, when they appear, it's because they're there to teach you something. When they disappear, it's because that lesson has been implanted and they're no longer meant to be in your world, because either the lesson's been taught. Ultimately, they're not there to serve your highest and best good, because you've achieved further, because you've up-leveled your own being. And those are all, and just to let that release, let it go, and be grateful. So actually, great. I'm going to take a moment for gratitude there. Talk about going back to the small shifts. Somewhere in my journey, someone had introduced me to gratitude. Okay, we all talk about gratitude.
I know, it's great, yeah.
Right? But it's something else to actually practice it. And so someone introduced me to this Facebook page called Radical Gratitude. And they were starting a 28-day gratitude challenge based on the book, The Magic. And I thought, well, okay, let's see what this is all about. And every day there was a new level of requesting to have gratitude statements around different things. Like day one is just write 10 statements of what you're grateful for. And you start your morning that way. And you write them, you read them out loud, and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mm-hmm. This takes a minute, 5 minutes of your day, small step. And then notice how your day changes from the morning, right? And let's say you slip up during the middle of the day because you have a really difficult conversation with your boss, or someone that's just irritating you, or, your cable goes out and you're just grousy, like whatever it is. Return to that gratitude. Just be like, hey, I'm grateful I have a house that I can actually have internet, Just see what happens. Little shifts.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to get back to something you said, because I really liked what you said. You go, when somebody comes into your life, it's because they're there to teach you something. Whenever they leave, the lesson's already been taught. And so, but how do we learn that lesson? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who, like, somebody comes in their life and they leave, and then they didn't learn. It seems like they didn't learn anything, because they are either living through they find it's like they're on to somebody else, or somebody else who plays that role is back in their life, and they're experiencing the same thing, or they're just not letting them go, like me, or with my ex years ago. That's completely behind me, but there was a time where I couldn't learn that lesson for like 5 or so years. So, how does one learn that? How does one really learn that lesson?
Reflection. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because there was an intent for me to bring that up as well.
Yeah.
I've also been in that position. In fact, my last relationship ended 8 months ago, and I haven't re-entered dating since. And part of the reason I haven't is that I hadn't fully released him out of my being, with my heart. I was for several months, I sat in reflection of, oh my gosh, this person was amazing. Forgetting the things that weren't so amazing. Forgetting about the patterns that repeated for me, forgetting about the places and spaces I was uncomfortable. So, like, example, when we were together, just the two of us, great conversation. We got along very well. We communicated very well. And every time we were with friends, with his friends in particular, I never felt very comfortable. Like, I always felt like on edge. Like, I wasn't allowed to just breathe and be me. I know when I did, I felt like I didn't belong in that space. And so I started eating more, drinking more. And I'm not much of a drinker. And it took for me to really write that down. Like, really write down and process everything. Acknowledge the wonderful things that we had. Acknowledge where I fell short on taking care of me. Like that it's really going back to me. Like, I wasn't receiving what I needed, what I felt I needed out of that situation. And even though we talked about it, I didn't stand up and honor it. Right? It was like, okay, well, he's feeling suffocated because I'm too much in his world. Well, you're inviting me into your world, right? However, when I tried to adjust myself to fit that, I felt suffocated because I wasn't communicating what I needed. And the ultimate lessons, the big lessons were like, I fell back into these patterns of like not continuing to choose what was best for me. And when I every time I did that and spoke up and spoke my truth, we had a really great constructive conversation. And when I didn't, when he didn't, we not argue, because we didn't argue. We'd try to make plans and things would go awry, like his bike wouldn't work or my chain broke or just stupid stuff, right? Because that's the universe telling you,
Yeah.
this isn't the situation right now, because you're not speaking up for your being. So I'm curious, like with yours, like you said it's been 5 years, like what was yours situation like? And what were some of the things that you've learned, reflected?
I know one of the main things I learned, because I was always dependent on somebody to be happy. Like knew her for over 5 years and we were together for like 3. And then, so that, I mean, her just up and leaving was like, it was random. I was putting my grandmother, I was putting my great grandmother literally in the ground the moment I got the message. So like the day was already like kind of thrown off. And then then that comes and I'm like, all right, now what's really, like this is like the crappiest day. And then I just started to, for about 3.5 to another 5 years after that, I turned very cold hearted. Like I talked to a lot of women and all I did was, I mean, to put it bluntly, I got what I came for and I kind of got out of their life. And I forced them out of my life. And I didn't give anybody a chance to get to know me at all, because I was like, nope, not anymore. Like, because of what happened. And I used her as an excuse to like really just let myself go. I gained 80 pounds. I just gave up on everything. And then finally, like one day it just hit me that like, Adrian, man, like she's gone. She has a family. She's like literally gone. What are you still doing? Like 5 years down the line, dude, you're a grown kid. I mean, like, you're grown. You're over here still blaming every little thing in your life that, oh, you got let go from your job. Oh, well, from some way, somehow you're going to go all the way back there and put it on that person. And like, for me, it was just understanding, like, I felt like the universe, and I still, by the way, I haven't been in a relationship since, not because I'm afraid to, but because the life that I'm living right now, naturally, it's never led in that direction. And I feel like right now I'm on my path and this is just the way that the universe is playing things out for me. But like the lesson that I feel like was really in mine was because I've always been dependent on somebody else. I've always been dependent on like, man, I always wanted a girlfriend to have. And, it's like I always wanted somebody to like bring me joy. And if I didn't have that, I felt like I was always alone. And so I never thought I'd be able to find like, I mean, I'm probably one of the most lit and joyful people that I know at my age, because my age right now, a lot of people in my age, like they're going through a lot of things and stuff like that. I mean, they're 23, they're getting, I mean, like adulthood is really setting in at this age and really hitting us hard. And I mean, like, I'm just happy I was able to find out within myself, because I realized that you can't squeeze an orange and get apple juice. You're only going to get orange juice. And I've never would have been able to find my own orange juice, if you're going to put it that way. But I never would have been able to find my own light and my own wholeness, because I realized that being holy does not mean I'm a good man. Being holy means I'm somebody who doesn't need anything to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
But now I've realized that, like, I don't need money to feel abundant. I don't need a partner to feel joyful. I'm the initiator of every single emotion. I'm the creator of every single emotion. If I can create that without any external, like, anything to depend on, and to me, that's what a real success is. And I don't think I would have found success if I would have had her. And another thing I learned is we never lose anybody. The universe just gets people out of your way. And when I learned, like when that hit me, I was like, wow, because I look back and I look at where my life is at right now. And if she would have been in my life still, there's absolutely no way in hell I would be where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take a quick tangent and I'll come back because there's a couple of things. One, I tuned into a podcast that, so I was on another show hosted by someone local here in Denver, and he had a guest on from Colombia who happens to be someone I've also recently gotten to know. And so I tuned into their show, and this woman in Colombia, and I didn't know this about her until I tuned in, is she's American, and she was in a relationship with somebody who lived in Colombia, and they had this long distance relationship, and it got to a point where they were ending, and he ended it like via email or something because they lived in different countries.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I'm coming down. I'm going to fly down there and we're going to do this face to face. And she did. And talk about courage, right? No. That to me is like, wow, that's courage. They ended the relationship. And this is the thing. Here's where the gratitude comes in. She got a country. They ended this relationship. She had never been to Colombia. She fell in love with this country and she stayed. And then she went on to meet somebody else, had a relationship, had a child, and that relationship ended. However, what she got out of that second relationship is motherhood. She's a beautiful child as a result. So again, it's all how you look at it, right? It is framework.
Perspective, everything.
That's just like one piece, but I want to really more focus on the other piece, and that is that wholeness within. And that's a lot of what I work on with my clients is finding that wholeness from within. Ultimately, we all do want to, many of us, I think we all want that idea of partnership and having someone to share life with. We all do. It's whether that's conditioning or just human nature.
I feel like it's like a natural thing.
Yeah. Because we're all meant to be in community. And if we really believe in spirituality, we actually are connected. And the only way we stay disconnected is because we disconnect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
However, that wholeness has to come from within. So it's really taking assessment of who you are showing up as today, identifying your values. So this is where the values become really important. So your values are your roadmap to how you live your life. And so one of the things I do very early on is we create a value system. I don't create it for you. I give the pathway of how you determine the values that you think are most suited for you. And if you can't figure that out for yourself, because a lot of people don't spend the time actually doing this.
Yeah.
We go to first we do the external, who are the 5 people in your world that you are super attracted to? And it doesn't have to be someone you actually know. It could be like Oprah, right? She's one of mine. Mine are a couple of spiritual leaders. And you write down those 5 people. And then you write down why you're so attracted to them. What is it about them that you love and you adore? Great. Now you circle those big words. Is it because they're fearless? Is it because they speak their truth? Is it because they just don't take BS from anybody? Whatever those are, then you get to define your values. And then you actually define that word and what it actually means to you, not the dictionary version. Why did you choose this value for you? Now you get to say, this is my values roadmap. This is how I'm going to make decisions in my life. If I value honesty, then I have to show up as being honest all the time, even if it's hard. Even if I want to say something that you assume is going to hurt someone else's feelings, you still have to show up that way, because that's living it within alignment with who you're being. And you keep choosing those pathways and keep making decisions along those ways. One of the other aspects too that I add in my own practice is I do a lot of visualization work. So we go into a somewhat of a meditative state. It's more of a subconscious state, and visualize. You talk about that, the vision statement or that vision of what your life is going to be, but visualize yourself as that person that you want to be. visualize places, spaces that you're most comfortable, most confident in. For me, it's a meadow. I'm very nature oriented. So my safe haven is this meadow with butterflies and waterfall. Those are very natural, very calming and soothing spaces for me. So we do that. So we start to construct how we get to love ourselves. And it's a daily practice. Daily practice. It doesn't have to take all day, but you take that time every day to say, these are the things I'm going to choose that make me feel good. And then notice how your life starts to shift and start to feel that fullness from within. And you know, I'm not a dating coach, although I do speak with a lot of them. A lot of them in my world. Is when you start to feel full within and love yourself, that's when others can love you. You have to feel comfortable enough to remove that armor and just be who you are. And then what you get to do is, I call it the Care Bear stare. It's the radiating the love around you, because your heart, when you're really living in your being, and this is for men and women, by the way, I know that sounds more contextual for women. When we get to live in our heart space and live in our being, our heart actually emanates 6 feet from our being. So if you've ever noticed people that are just happy and joyful, like, you know, like you're walking down the street and you see people like singing and just grooving in their stuff, they're in their heart space. They're not in their head thinking about, oh my God, I have to do all these things today, tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. They're just here and present. And that's why you're attracted to them, because they're emanating that. They're not only they're feeling it within themselves, they're emanating it out. And they're not necessarily needing anyone to come into their world, because they're just good with who they are. That's when you get to live in your power and your strength. And from there is where you get to share with others, because your cup has to be full first. If you're pouring from an empty cup, you're going to keep finding yourself back in that same space of, if something ends, because there are beginnings and endings to everything. If that relationship ends and you walk away from it, you're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I feel like I feel empty. Well, it's because, you poured from an empty cup. But if you continue to say, I'm really good with me, and I'm choosing to be in this relationship, I'm going to put it from a romantic relationship, choose that every day. Like, do like a body assessment in the morning and say, hey, am I good first? Not the other person. Am I good?
Am I good, yeah.
And if I'm not okay, then you kind of maybe have to put some boundaries and say, like, I will come to you when I'm ready. Right now, I gotta love on me for a while, and I'll let you know when I'm ready to allow you to into my space again.
Yeah, and I feel like, there's not a lot of people who get to live in that heart space of, that joy, and they're radiating what they truly want to be, and they're radiating what they are, is because I feel like a lot of people feel like they're not worth it, or like what they are is like, oh well, what do you mean? I mean, like, I'm just so and so, like, what's so special about what? And I know, I was watching some of your videos on your page, and you go through the 4 lessons in your Break Up to Wake Up series. And I remember you talking about breaking up with the idea of being worthless. So can you go ahead and speak on what those 4 lessons are?
Yeah, so it's really starting to break up with first the stories. So all of us, no matter how wonderful our parents were and are, we all were born into community, to whatever the community may be. And early in childhood, we create stories of our own worthiness. And that's based on what the community around us has said. For me, I want to go really, just because I think it's just a great way to do it. My parents said to me, they said this to me in adulthood, So it took me a long time to figure out the origin of this one. When I was pregnant with my only child, they had said to me that I was an ugly baby. Then it says to me as, a kid, they said this to me jokingly as an adult. And
pregnant.
that when I was first born, and they probably said it to me before I was pregnant.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember when the first time they said it. However, even though they said this to me in adulthood, as a baby, as a brand new person arriving into this world, even if they hadn't said it to me, and I'm sure that they said it around me because I was a baby and my parents didn't understand that when you're first born, you're a pure empath and you feel everything. You feel everything.
Yeah, literally.
That's literally how you communicate. So even if they didn't say those words, I felt it from the moment that I arrived on this planet, that they had this expectation. They had an expectation of what I was going to be, and I was different from that expectation. And I created a story that I fell short of their expectation.
Wow. And
so from birth, I told myself I had this ingrained story that I was not worthy of receiving love because I was an ugly baby. How messed up is that? Now, my parents didn't know any differently. So I've had to work through, how do I forgive them? Because it's a forgiveness. They only knew they didn't understand this. They aren't, they're not spiritually awake. They're lovely people, and they did the best they could with what they have. And I will tell you, as a parent, I'm like, I know I'm messing my kid up. I get it. We all do. However, there was a forgiveness that had to come from that. But first, I had to start with the origin. Like, where did that come from? Where did it come from? How did I forgive? Okay. Now I get to shift that story. And so one of the things I've done, so my practice particularly is based in NLP, which is the neuro-linguistic programming and the cellular level of like how we imbibe what we do. So I had to go back to that storyline from the moment of birth. And what I did is I re-entered that space. And in that space, what I visioned, was all the adults in the room looking at this brand new baby who was considered an ugly baby, and everyone felt it. And if they didn't say it or they said it, I felt it. And I changed my story and said, okay, as a child, I'm going to smile because that's what I can do. Can't really do that, but I can do that. And what happened is I now radiate the love into the space, and the whole mood in that space changed. All the parents, all the adults started to radiate love around that because I was the love now. No one else had to love me. I had to love me. When I did that, the space changed and the feelings shifted in that space. And I got to rewrite that story. I am worthy. I am beautiful. So it's starting with that. I know, I heard the more beeps. It's all good.
Calendar, I knew it was coming too.
It's breaking up with that. It's breaking up with the bad habits of the repeat negative stuff. Because it's one thing to write the new story. It's a second to like create the habit.
Yeah.
Like good habit. So it's like when you tell yourself, I didn't get that job because I'm not smart enough. Well, if you keep saying that to yourself, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get that next job.
Yeah.
Because you keep telling yourself you're not smart enough. You change it to, okay, that wasn't what was meant for me. I am smart enough. In fact, I deserve this, and I'm going to go for it. And I can do this. And you just keep telling yourself that you can do, because you can do anything you choose to. You can.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, you've been there. It's releasing the people that aren't good for you any longer. And that's going to sort of naturally happen anyway over time, because as you start to up level, the people that were around you, they no longer want to see you being the best version of you. Truly. So like, if you're a people pleaser and you do everything to make sure that everyone else around you is happy, or let's say your best friend, you're a people pleaser to your best friend, and every time your best friend wants to go do something, and one day you're like, I don't want to do it because it doesn't make me feel good anymore, and you keep saying, like, you keep turning that person down, that person's going to be like, well, what the heck's going on, right? So you may have to have that conversation, or that person's naturally going to fall away because you're no longer playing that role in their life of pleasing them. So that, so when we talk about go back to break up to wake up, and people come to me and say, well, does that mean relationship? Well, it might, because as you start to shift and you start to change, people will naturally fall away. And understand that. Huh?
Like you're growing through removing.
Yeah. And it's breaking up with the idea of what you thought your life was going to be. That one's huge. That one is really big. And sometimes that one can be very, very difficult to release. And that's a lot of times what I end up, a lot of what clients come to me for is, many of my clients come to me because they've just gone through like, a breakup with a relationship, or a breakup of a marriage. And they had this idealized life that they thought they were going to live. And I'm included in that. Like, you grow up, and many women are sort of, as little girls, we come up with this idea that we're meant to get married. We're meant to have 2.5 kids, have a beautiful house, have a wonderful career, have a husband, and live in suburbia, right? That's the idyllic world of what we're supposed to have. And that may not be what you're meant to be here for. And I'm not saying that you can't have that, but be aware of what you're really meant to do. Are you meant to, is your bliss, making dinner for your family every night? Or is your bliss to be on stage every night? What's your bliss? Like, what is that you really want to do? Fall in love with that. And keep falling in love with that. And it's going to shift. I had a very blessed life. And I have to acknowledge that I've had a lot of good things happen for me. I spent, before moving to Colorado, the career that I walked away from, I spent 10 years working in organ and tissue donation. And so I worked with families who had just lost their loved one through rather either known or unknown circumstance. This is, people die every day. My role, one of the roles I carried, is I managed the team that spoke to families very soon after they'd lost loved ones to talk to them about the options for anatomical donation. I'm talking about like organs and tissue donation.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
the space that I worked in. And it's from a logistical standpoint, it's a very short timeline that we have to do recovery after someone has passed. You only have 24 hours to make that happen for a gift to be recovered so that can be utilized for transplant. And that's for tissue. Organ is a completely different body.
Okay. But
but same space. So I spend a lot of time talking with families in the immediacy of losing a loved one. And of course, it's very shocking, and you're in an immediate state of grief, and there's all sorts of conversation that happens. However, what was consistent is people have those epiphanal moments because they've just lost somebody. And they do a quick life assessment for their own being. Gosh, mom just died and she never did X, Y, Z. I'm not going to do that. There are things I want to still do in my life. And these are the things I still want to achieve for myself, for my own wellness and my own happiness. Light bulb moment. guess what? You get to live it today. You can choose. So not everything happens today, but it is an active choice to say, today I'm going to do something that makes me happy. And so go skydiving? Cool. Go book the skydiving trip. Like, what are you waiting for? Because there's no guarantee. There is no guarantee. Like, yes, we were about to get on this call this morning. We scheduled it, right? There was no guarantee that I was going to make it to today.
Yeah, same here. Who knew? Yeah, who knows?
You know, we don't. So, you know, that really set a new trajectory. I think I'd always lived that way anyway. Yet that really starts to shift how you look at how you get to live a life.
People don't think they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
People, I'm realizing people are really convinced they don't have a choice. Like, you know, no, I have to go to work tomorrow and do this because of this. So I can't do that. And I can't. But then, like, the way you're putting it, it's like, yeah, I mean, I know it's a lot easier said than done. Yeah, I know we got bills. I know the real world, right? I know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
in the deeper reality, like the reality of reality, you're the one who, I mean, you write your story every day.
You sure do.
It's whether you do it consciously or not.
And yeah, I'm going to talk 3D and then I'm going to go 5D for a minute. So 3D is what you're talking about. The 3D world of, I get up in the morning, go to work, I do my thing, I come home, you know, eat my dinner, turn on the TV and go to bed. And that's the, you know, the cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 5D, I want to shift some things around 3D first. So 3D, yes. And you might love that. Like, that might really make you happy, right? And be fulfilling. Let's say you go to a job that you actually really love. You don't have to be self-employed to like love your life, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
it has everything. I particularly love it. I also do have an employer too. So I call my employer my investor. So when I look at my JOB, my JOB is still helping other people, right? So not every aspect of my JOB is awesome. You know, there are definitely like things that I'm like, okay, I wish that it could be different. However, I'm going to, even within that construct, I'm going to get up this morning and I'm going to say, what can go well today? What gift am I going to receive today? What gift am I going to receive today? Changes your perspective. I go in, well, not going into the office at the moment because our office is still closed, so still home based. What am I going to contribute to this conversation today? What are the things that I want to achieve for myself today that's going to help further my purpose? And if it complements the work, even better. It's perspective. So you come from that place of shifting your frame of how you look and how you feel and how you operate. Now the 5D, this is where the 5D world comes in. If you're going into work every day grumpy and you're like, my life is yuck and my life is crap and I don't like it, 5D is going to catch that vibration and that frequency, and they're going to keep you, it's going to keep you suppressed, right? It's because there's a flow to how life works. It's the force, right? You understand. Yeah. It's the force that keeps it, it's the balance, right? You shift into that place of positivity and really own it. And it's not like it can be little things. It doesn't have to be like, whoa, my life is brilliant every day, because life isn't always brilliant every day.
Yeah.
We all have stuff. You start to live in this space of like, I am happy with where I'm at. I am grateful for everything I have. And I'm going to put my best foot forward today. Universe is the flow is going to feel that. The force is going to feel that. And what will show up is new opportunities. It may come in the form of a new project is starting at work, and it's something that you're really excited about. And maybe your manager approaches you about that and says, hey, I want to put you on that project. Sweet. I'm a little more bold. If I see a project I want to be a part of, I tend to go after it and then say I'm going to be a part of this, and here I am now. That's just how I operate. Not everyone goes that way. But just take note of that. Also, I want to share this too. Stay unbusy. We are a community and a society that values busyness.
You are so right. Because when my calendar is packed up, there's like a feeling of like, I'm doing something right. You know, like, no, that's very true though. It's like a culture. It's like, you know, something is like kind of just programmed into the psyche. Like we value busyness. You're so right.
Mm-hmm. And it's gotten inflamed with the advent of social media as well, because we look at what other people are doing. We're so consumed with what everyone else is doing. We're like, oh my gosh, that person's going A, B, C, D, and E, and they're doing so many great things, and I want that. And then we start to make ourselves like feel like we're not worthy because we don't have that full packed agenda. First of all, shut that down. Stop comparison. Comparison is the devil. And get yourself like schedule stuff if you have to. Like schedule yourself a half an hour to sit in silence, sit outside. You talked about meditation earlier, and not everyone meditation is not for everybody. Necessarily, you don't have to sit in silence for half an hour with your eyes closed and draw in. To each their own, but take that time, just like take time out for you, because in the stillness is where your intuition shows up, because you have to get quiet enough to hear it. And it's where your feelings start to show up, because you check into your body, because you're out of your head. Because our heads are running constantly. And most of the time, our heads are running some stuff that may not actually be true, may not actually be like serving you in a good way. Like, might be telling yourself like, oh, I can't believe I just said that to my partner, and I'm angry at myself for saying that. Like all that negative garbage, that doesn't fill you up. It's if you can live in the space of your heart and of your being, that's where your happiness truly is. Best way to do that though is to sit in some stillness and just be. Because that's where if you can be good with you, the rest of the world just opens up.
You can be good with you, the rest of the world opens up. And yeah, that's a big one, because one thing that it's hitting me a lot is I'm in the phase of working less, trying my best to. I work a lot, like a bit too much. But I genuinely enjoy like just about every aspect of what I do, because a lot of admin stuff that's maybe not the funnest, but I truly do enjoy what I do for a living. And there are times where because at my peak, I was clocking in anywhere between, it was 85 to 100 hours every week. Oof. And those are work hours, keep in mind, not just, like I'm just tracking the hours I'm awake. It was like the hours I was actually in front of a computer screen doing something. Yeah. And it was hitting me, that I was missing family time. I was saying no to family time. I was saying no to other things. And then I was having a conversation with somebody on the podcast named Ani about 2 weeks ago. And he was telling me that a lot of people who are in the mindset that I was in, or that I'm like honestly getting out of at this moment, is they feel guilty when they're not working. Like they feel guilty and they can't be okay with that guilt. And that was me. Like I can't, if I wasn't doing, if I went somewhere, I needed to get my computer and bring it with me, because I felt guilty by not being around it, by not doing something. And I was never okay with that guilt. And so when I would take time off, it would look like business would slow down, because that was the story I told myself was, Adrian, you have to go hard, or else business doesn't happen for you unless you go, like unless you're moving and moving and moving and moving. And that is like literally what life looked like. It was like, Adrian, the second you stop, business stops. This is you. And it was a story I was telling myself until he helped me realize, was like, Adrian, what if it wasn't like that? Like, why don't you just say that? Why don't you just and start living like that? But being with that guilt has been such a game changer for me, because I'm so okay with it now. Like, when I'm guilty, I'm like, it's good. You're feeling guilty. That's okay. And because I've been okay with that, business has been great. Things happen when you don't need it to, like when
Yeah.
you're okay with something. So what do you think is the number one thing that's holding people back from taking that leap in their life?
Fear of failure.
Ooh. And
Everything.
how would somebody,
Everything comes back to fear of failure. Everything. Everything.
how would you change that? How would you get over that fear? Would you say it would be like how you were talking about earlier, like just shifting your perception around fear?
It's multi-leveled. Shifting is one thing. It's actually like step out and go do something that scares the Jesus out of you. Like,
Yes.
really scares the crap out of you. Go do it. And then sit back and see what happens. Like, allow to whatever happened, whatever the response is going to be or the reaction is going to be. Allow that to happen, and then check back in with yourself. So an example of this is, I have, like I mentioned earlier, my last relationship ended in November, and I did two big things that were really terrifying for me. And I tell you, like, my own head garbage.
I did a whole bunch of those in 2019.
Head garbage. And here I'm going to tell you I survived both of them. One is was asked to be a guest on another show. And when this person showed up on screen to do like the pre-interview, and I was like, oh, wow, this person's interesting and he's good looking. And it was like the first time I sort of like allowed myself to open up to the thought of having somebody else in my world. Now, mind you, I still have a lot more work to do, like about my own self-love, because I got away from that for a long time. I asked this person to be on my own podcast, and I knew, so this is also going back to my value system, so I'll tell you the story. I was like, oh gosh, this person's interesting. And they asked this person to be on my show. And we did another conversation to get ready for my show. And I knew that I was out of alignment. I was not being integrous as to why I was asking him to be. Yes, he fit the bill, but I wasn't asking him to be on the show for the reasons that I usually ask people to be on the show. So I had to be honest with him. I had to tell him why. Like, this person, I have to uninvite you, and this is why. And I told him. And it was terrifying because it put me in a place of fear of rejection, because I hadn't even put myself out there yet. And this is the first person I'm like, interesting. And yeah, and ultimately that is what happened. It wasn't a mutual. Okay, guess what? I survived. And it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again and again and again. And it's going to happen in both sides of that street, right? This person's experienced that too. Not just me, not alone. I'm here. No bullets. Heart's not broken. I made it.
It's never as bad as we think it is.
You just have to take that chance. You just have to take that chance. The second one was this person that I cared quite a bit for. I had I went to a retreat that a friend hosted. And days before, it had like an epiphanal moment. I had a quiet moment, an intuitive hit. I was like, there's still something I still need to say. My throat was literally getting tight. And I was like, I need to still say something to this person, because I closed the door pretty heavily when things ended for my own self-preservation. And it didn't ever feel right for me. And I'd seen this person now in public a few times, and We hadn't communicated, and I couldn't understand why, because we ended on very amicable terms. And there were some other things that occurred over this course of the last 8 months. So I sent an email, and I was like, hey, these things have occurred. I want to tell you like where I'm at with things. I'm confused by some of the actions that have occurred over these last few months. And I just wanted to tell you where I'm at. And this was also very scary for me to do, because that to me was like being really vulnerable. And I didn't know if this person was going to respond. You know, I still hadn't fully like released this person from my world, which is why I wasn't able to move on. And I did it.
So I feel like the number one thing to taking the leap is just doing it. Like just
doing it,
just
taking that action,
Yeah.
and then being unattached to any outcome. Just be okay with being whatever it is that you've taken your action. That's all because that's all you can do.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. And what's made it easy is just accepting the fact that you don't know what can happen.
No.
There's there's infinite possibilities that can happen, and I'm okay with that.
Yes.
That has been when I let go of like my goals like that. I still set goals, but I'm not goal oriented. Like I don't live for them. And I feel like that's why they get hit so much because I don't really live for them. But okay, so other than that, I feel like we're nearing the end here. And one of the last things I wanted to ask you was, what would you say the first step is to somebody who's trying to I guess you can say unrooting a belief or a story that's holding them back? Like, what is the first step to unrooting a belief or a story that is, holding you back from shining your light? Like, what would you say that one step for them to be right now?
Be honest with yourself.
Which is
really
hard.
honest. Be really honest with yourself. And you don't have to, this isn't, you don't have to mean to share that with anybody else initially. Like, whatever it is that, however you communicate, if it's writing, if it's writing writing in your journal, if it's singing a song, if it's recording yourself saying it, whatever it is, but be real honest with yourself about like what isn't working in your world, because it's always about what isn't working, not what is working. That's where you want to shift. Or in proximity of, let's say there's something you really like. For me, it was this woman that I reconnected with from high school, and was like, what is she doing? I want that. Find something you want. Find something that you really, really want, and go learn about it. When I launched my own podcast, the reason I launched it is that I had met someone along my journey who had a show. I didn't even know what podcast was, truly. And then I listened to a few of his podcasts, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I went for a drive in the mountains, unintended to ever launch a show. I didn't know what a podcast was 2 weeks earlier. And on that drive, a song came on the radio and it inspired me. And for the next 5 hours, I launched my show.
Wow.
I knew what I was going to talk about. I had my first 20 guests. I had the name of the show. I had my theme song. I knew it all. And my reservation was I didn't like my voice.
Oh man, that was mine. I used to make music and I never released my music because of that.
And then you know what? But then that was my limiting belief. That was my limiting fear. And I said, Jocelyn, you've come too far. You've come too far to allow that to be the thing that stops you. That's ridiculous. Get over yourself. That's just your ego. No one else is going to actually care. The only person that cares about that is you. Dang. And once I got over that, I went full force and went back to that person whose show I listened to. And I was like, all right, don't really know you that well. You teach me all the ropes. And you know what? He said yes. And here I am.
Wow.
And if someone says no, then that means it's not your person. That's okay. Someone else will say yes. Something else will say yes. And keep going towards those things where the doors and windows open. If the doors are closing and the windows are shutting, that means that's not your path. That's okay, because you the only way you know is like try it on. Try on lots of different outfits, because you will find the things that fit you and the people that fit you. Those are the things that come easily. That's okay. If it's not coming easily, it means you're fighting some sort of resistance, either within yourself or it's actually not meant for you. And that, but it's one step at a time.
I love it.
I do encourage this though, is once you get real honest about yourself, about the things that you may not really like about how you're showing up, now take action towards it. If you need support, get it. Like, I've had a coach consistently for the last 3 years. And I also interview coaches and healers every day. So I have lots of coaches in my world. For me, that's my support, right?
Yeah.
None of us are meant to be an island. We are not islands. We are all connected. Like I said earlier, the only way we disconnect ourselves is because we disconnect ourselves to love. And when we talk about love, it's loving ourselves. When we start to connect into that, the world is going to shift.
Beautiful, beautiful. Man, we are not islands. And that one's sticking with me because, yeah, I've had coaches for the past 2 years. And because I've had coaches, my life it's been a wonderful ride this past 2 years. And I understand that another pair of hands brought me into the world so I can get a lot further with another pair of hands too. So that's one thing I encourage everybody to,
it's one hand forward and one hand back, right?
Yes, bringing
someone is going to, there's someone ahead of you who has extended their hand and says, okay, I'm here for you. I'm a support for you. And then you do the same for somebody else. And that's how we do it.
That's such a beautiful way to end the conversation right there. That is such a beautiful way to end it. Well, I love it. This has been such a joy, such a pleasure to have you on this show today. So if people wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, where would they find you at?
Best way to find me is on Facebook. Right now, I'm going to direct everyone to my personal page. I do have a business page. However, I'm getting into a bit of a sticky situation with my former husband about some of that. So I'm going to throw everyone to my personal page, which is Jocelyn Bellows. You can find me on Facebook on Jocelyn Bellows. And follow me on Instagram at What's Your Leap.
What's Your Leap? And then that is the name of your podcast too.
My podcast is called Leap. However, the handle is What's Your Leap. And then you can find information about my podcast on Instagram as well.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Okay. So one of the last things I ask all of my clients, I'm so used to working with people. all of my guests is if you have 30 to 60 seconds and left and to say one last thing to the world, and this is what you were leaving behind in your last 30 to 60 seconds, what would you say?
Promote yourself from project manager to CEO of your life, and go ahead and leap from limitation to liberation.
Beautiful. From limitation. Look at you just dropping all these bombs. I love it at the end. I love it. Awesome, Jocelyn. Well, that was absolutely beautiful. It was wonderful to have you on this show. And so again, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me.
Adrian, I thank you. This has been a wonderful hour and a half. I've really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you sharing your morning with me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.
You too.